I recently did a complete video course on the Nakshatras with fellow astrologer Ryan Korzak. And on the YouTube videos that are the nakshatra descriptions themselves, because we released those nakshatra descriptions for free, some of the comments coming back on those nakshatra videos are expressing a very deep interest in understanding each of the planets and indeed the Ascendant, or Lagna as it's also known, through the nakshatras. Because most people know about their moon and what nakshatra it's in, but not a lot of people understand how different astrological components like the Lagna or other specific planets will behave in a particular nakshatra. So this is going to be a rather long series because there are so many different things to cover. There are 27 different nakshatras, and there are 9 different grahas we're going to be working with. And we also have the Lagna. So we're talking all in all 270 videos in order to do this, right? This first one's going to be a little bit longer because we're going to talk about what the nakshatras are before we get into it, because some people aren't familiar with the nakshatras, right? The nakshatras are the original constellations. Far before there were the names of Aries for a constellation or Taurus for a constellation, there were other names for the nakshatras. And in the Vedas, the oldest references to the nakshatras in the Vedas date back to the Rig Veda. And these are the original constellations, okay? Ashwini, Bharani, Kritika, they're all the original constellations, and the names of them far predate any of the names of the what later became the astrological signs, such as Aries, Taurus, etc. So the nakshatras are the original constellations, but the nakshatras are also known as the wives of the moon. And what is the moon? What does the moon represent? We need to get into this briefly, even though we're going to talk today about the Lagna, or the Ascendant. But we need to understand the nakshatras first. So the moon represents consciousness, or our sensory mind. It's our sensory mind with which we navigate consciousness. And the wives of a particular deity in Vedic mythology tend to carry the energy of that deity. They're the energy of that deity in action within the material realm. So quite simply put, the nakshatras are there to grow the consciousness of particular planets that are placed in them, in addition to the ascendant. Wherever the ascendant is placed, it's there to grow the consciousness of the ascendant in a particular manner. Now, there are so many different things that are involved in understanding nakshatras, such as padas, which are the quarters of a nakshatra. Each nakshatra has 4 quarters. And there's also something called Tarabala, which is the distance of a nakshatra from the birth nakshatra, or the distance of a nakshatra from another nakshatra. We're not going to get into that for the simplicity of this course. We're just going to talk about the basic planets in the nakshatras and also the Lagna in the nakshatras and what those particular things mean. So a nakshatra is 13 degrees and 20 minutes. There are 27 of them that make up the zodiac. Some astrologers use a 28th nakshatra, but for most purposes, it's 27 nakshatras that are in use, and 13 degrees, 20 minutes times 27 gives you 360. So some people like to say that the nakshatras are divisions of a zodiac sign. And you can say that, but they're much deeper than that, because the zodiac signs are associated with the ecliptic, which is the path of the sun from winter solstice to summer solstice and back again. The zodiac is 12 divisions of the ecliptic. The nakshatras are actually the fixed stars that are beyond the zodiac, that are beyond the ecliptic. They're not connected with the ecliptic necessarily. We can certainly view them from the perspective here on Earth in relation to where we associate a particular zodiac sign with being. We can definitely understand it that way, but there's something that's far beyond that. So they are the original constellations, and that's why I want to focus on calling them the original constellations so that people really understand. And they're there to grow the consciousness of a particular astrological component in a specific manner. So we're going to start today with the very first nakshatra, which is Ashwini Nakshatra. And in starting with Ashwini Nakshatra, we're going to talk about the Lagna in Ashwini, the Ascendant in Ashwini. And we're going to carry this entire series through to Bharani, Kritika, Rohini, all the nakshatras. I may actually start a different planet at the other end of the nakshatras, just to kind of spice things up a little bit and make it so that people with planets in particular nakshatras or the ascendant in particular nakshatras don't have to necessarily wait around a long time before one of their planets comes up, and it will keep people interested a little bit more. So first of all, what is the Lagna? What is the ascendant, right? Well, that is the point that's on the horizon at the time of birth, the point that's on the eastern horizon at the time of birth. What does it relate to astrologically? Well, let's refer back to Brihat Parashara Horus Shastra, which is the ancient astrological text, one of the ancient astrological texts, I should say, behind Vedic astrology. And what Brihat Parashara Horus Shastra has to say about this is that the Lagna relates to our body, our appearance, our cognizance. It says body and appearance, cognizance and caste, as well as strength and awareness, comfort, pain, and one's own true state are looked at from the Lagna Bhava. Bhava means house, so from the ascendant, okay? So in order to understand this, we're going to focus on body, appearance, person's perspective, because that's the cognizance, and focus on those particular things in relation to Ashwini Nakshatra. Ashwini Nakshatra is the first of the nakshatras, and I'm going to put a link down at the bottom of this. It'll connect you to the first video in the series on Ashwini, where you can get a little bit more in-depth perspective on what Ashwini is all about, but we'll touch on a few components here. Basically, Ashwini, being the first of the nakshatras, is about impulse in general. It's a planet that is comprised of three different energies. They're also called gunas, right? That's basically each of the nakshatras has three different gunas in association with it, and those are balanced in a particular manner. So the three different gunas in general are rajas, tamas, and sattva. What is rajas? Rajas is the energy of action. It's very swift moving energy. And we may go over these on some of the nakshatras, some of them we may not too. What is tamas? Tamas is, I'm just giving you simple ways to understand these. I just want to bring your attention to that because this is not the fullness of what these energies are all about. So before some of you type back and say, well, tamas is so much more than that. I know all those things, but I just kind of want to make it simple for people to understand. So rajasic energy can be very desire-oriented and very quick-moving and very swift, okay? Tamasic energy can be very dense and slow-moving. It's the energy of resistance. Sattvic energy is very balanced and inspired, okay? So Ashwini in general is rajasic at all three levels. It's rajasic at the primary level, secondary level, and the tertiary level. So it's a very swift-moving nakshatra, okay? So people with their ascendant in Ashwini, as the ascendant is going to determine what our perspective on life is, and it's also the body, which is our body of consciousness and what carries us through our life. The ascendant, people with their ascendant in Ashwini can have a tendency to live life in the fast lane. That may not sound like such a good thing, but it actually can be okay. It's just the nature of these individuals. They live life in the fast lane. They're creatures of impulse. Okay, I don't want to say impulsive because impulsive sounds bad. Creatures of impulse. And sometimes impulse can be very good. especially if the impulse that we're acting on is naturally guided by a divine force inside of ourselves, right? So one of the things that's connected with Ashwini natives is they can be very swift to act. And because Ashwini is also a Dharma-driven nakshatra, they can be very quick to act and do the right thing if there are good associations with Ashwini. More on that later, right? But people with Ashwini as their ascendant tend to live life in the fast lane. They're very impulsive individuals. They're very quick to act. If the ruler of Ashwini, which is Ketu, the south node, is well supported in a chart, then these people are going to be very dharmic by nature, very quick to act in a very divinely inspired manner, just very divinely guided, because that's their cognizance, that's their mind, that's their perspective on things. It's a Dharma nakshatra, so they want to do the right thing, and they want to do the right thing quickly. Okay, as the Lagna is also associated with our power of cognizance, as we were saying before, or perspective. People with their ascendant in Ashwini can also be very quick-witted. They think very quickly. They're very quick to provide solutions to problems. These are the people you want to go to when there's a problem and you need an answer like that, because they're going to come up with it for you, right? As the ascendant is also connected with our appearance or our body, individuals with their Lagna and Ashwini can have a very charismatic and healing presence. And why is that? Well, basically, as Ashwini is related to the divine impulse, it's that very first spark. These individuals will just naturally have a spark to them. But additionally, each of the nakshatras also has a particular deity associated with it. And the deity that's connected to Ashwini nakshatra are, when I said deity, I should say deities. Sometimes it's more than one deity with a nakshatra. But the deities connected with Ashwini nakshatra are the Ashwini Kumars. They are the divine physicians. Okay, and the Kumars are very young in appearance. They always stay young looking, and they're always out to act very dharmically. So then again, the concept of dharma in association with Ashwini. But basically, people who have their ascendant in Ashwini, as that's going to be associated with their body, they can exude a very healing presence. And they're very charismatic. They're the type of people that you always feel comfortable being around. They always soothe you and help you to gain perspective on life that's going to guide you in the right direction. They're the natural healers of life. In order to understand Ashwini a little more deeply, though, and how the Lagna in Ashwini can make a native appear and make them think, all those things, we also need to understand the Lord of Ashwini, because the way that Ashwini is going to come across in an individual is determined by several different factors, but one of the prime factors among that is the dignity or the well-being of the Lord of the nakshatra. And as the Lord of Ashwini is Ketu, Ketu and Rahu, the south node and the north node, as they're also known, are formless planets. They are not actual planets that we can see with our physical eye. They create a physical presence through eclipses, because these are the points that create eclipses, but they don't actually have a physical presence. So in order to determine their dignity, we would need to look at where Ketu and Rahu are in the chart, and we would need to take a look at the dignity of the planet that rules the sign that those energies are placed in. So as we're looking at Ketu, in order to understand the dignity of Ketu, we'd have to take a look at where the Lord of Ketu is in a particular instance. So let's give a few different examples. Let's say we've got Ketu in Cancer for an individual. Let's give some examples of how Ashwini can function in a negative polarity first. Let's say we've got Ketu in Cancer, which is ruled by the moon. And the moon is in the very early part of Scorpio, where the moon is debilitated. These can be people who might go about their life in a very passive, aggressive manner. Why passive aggressive? Well, when there's a K2 moon connection, as there would be with K2 in Cancer, these people are going to think that they're being emotionally strong when really they're kind of compartmentalizing their emotions, repressing their emotions and putting them in a specific place. So they'll come across as seeming, very detached and very calm, but there's something else that's beneath the surface, especially if the moon is in Scorpio. They're going to have a lot of turbulent energy beneath the surface, but they're repressing it in a particular manner. So they may come across as acting rather hastily without consideration for the feelings of others who are connected with them, or without consideration for their own feelings. And then those circumstances that are created by their actions tend to backfire on them. Or they may act in a rage, acting from their temper, because when there's a K2 Cancer connection, as somebody is repressing the emotions, those emotions have to come out somehow. And usually when they do, they come out in a very eruptive manner and in a very forceful manner, especially with the moon in Scorpio. So the individual may act from their temper and be very hasty in their actions and act in a rage. Let's give another example of K2 in Leo with a debilitated sun, which would be placed in Libra. These individuals may be quick to act, thinking that what they're doing will bring them a high level of attention for appearing righteous. So it's less that these people want to be dharmic in their actions, and more that they just want to appear to be dharmic. And they're going to continually be concerned with their appearance, right? And feel that they're never good enough inside of themselves because they're not really being dharmic, but they're going to look to get that attention for being dharmic externally. Let's look at some good examples, though. Let's say we've got K2 in Pisces, where Pisces is going to give a level of surrender for the individual. And let's say we've got Jupiter in Cancer. Let's just go back to the previous example briefly. So we were talking about the sun in Libra and K2 in Leo. So these people will be very quick to act, but they're just wanting to appear to be dharmic, as Ashwini is a dharma-driven nakshatra. So just to cover that one more aspect. Back to K2 in Pisces and Jupiter in Cancer. Jupiter is exalted in Cancer, so this is a good placement. So K2 in Pisces is going to give an individual a level of faith and surrender in their actions. So these people are going to act impulsively and naturally do what is right because they're guided by a sense of inner wisdom in a natural manner from inside of themselves. Additionally, they're not really looking to get anything out of the situation because they're pretty content inside of themselves. So they're just going to act naturally and do what is ultimately right in a particular case. How about if we had K2 in Taurus with Venus in Pisces, where Venus is exalted? Well, this could create somebody who's a natural healer, as Venus is the planet of healing. And also Venus in Pisces gives an individual the capacity to be very self-sacrificing. Okay, and as we know, Taurus energy can be very determined. It can also be very loyal. Okay, so let's say we had K2 in Taurus and Venus in Pisces. This could create a natural healer who's always concerned about the well-being of their clients. Okay, let's take also a very brief look at how the Lagna being associated with the body and the Lagna being an Ashwini might create some energies for the individual. Let's say we've got a well-supported K2 and the Lagna is in Ashwini. These individuals can be very quick to heal. Okay, they're always filled with a level of vibrance because you can look at Ashwini as kind of being associated with prana, which is life force energy, because it's that divine impulse, and it's very quick moving and moves throughout the body. So these people can have a very strong immune system and can be very quick healing. If Ketu isn't very well supported, the impact this can have on health, let's say, again, we're going back to the Ketu in Cancer and the moon in the early portion of Scorpio scenario. Well, these people, they can be very disconnected. They can get very emotional, let their emotions get the better of them to the extent that they become very drained because they kind of get into these hasty scenarios where they're acting all over the place and their energy just becomes really scattered. Then we also would go back to the example of saying Ketu is in Leo with the sun in Libra. Well, because these individuals are interested in getting that attention for doing the right thing, they're going to spread themselves too thin, where actually they're not doing the right thing because they're trying to appear this way to that person and that way to another person, rather than actually just doing what is right. They're trying to appear right. So they spread themselves too thin across different groups of people because they're wanting to appear to be a certain way. Now, these are just a few examples of how the Ascendant in Ashwini can make individuals act. A lot of it, as I mentioned before, is going to be determined on the placement of Ketu in the chart, because Ketu is the ruler of Ashwini Nakshatra. And in addition to that, it's going to be associated with the Tara, or the distance between the moon's nakshatra and the nakshatra that Ketu is placed in. All of which I can find out for you if you're interested in scheduling an astrological consultation with me. And if you are also interested in just knowing if you have any planets in Ashwini Nakshatra, please also click the link below and you can explore the free chart calculator on my site. And if you just enter your birth information, it'll show you where what nakshatras you have each of your planets in. And you can use that as a guide for the future videos that we're going to do on this subject. That's going to do it for this one. I'll talk to you soon. Bye now.